Dr. Judith Wiley-Rosette, Professor of Epidemiology and Population Health at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. She joins us here in New York. We welcome you, Dr. Rosette.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So let's just talk a little bit about fats and make it clear why this website will be helpful to a lot of people. We talk all the time about bad fats, and in recent times we've talked mostly about trans fats. So give us some overall sense of the bad fats in general and the trans fats in particular, and what we should, as nutrition eaters, all of us, worry about.
There are basically two types of bad fats, and those are the saturated fats, which we've learned about for a long time, and the trans fats, which are actually a substitute for the saturated fats. Both of them are solid, tend to be solid at room temperatures, and are fats that raise blood cholesterol.
And my understanding is that while we have focused recently on trans fats, they're a relatively small part of our diet, that we consume many more saturated fats.
We only consume about less than 2% of our calories as trans fats and closer to 8 to 10% as saturated fat. So again, we need to look at both of those.
And the good fats that we should be looking at would be summarized by you as?
The polyunsaturated and the monounsaturated fats.
And examples would be?
Those are liquid oils. A lot of nuts are high in mono or polyunsaturated fats as well.
Now, the traditional recommendation from the Heart Association has been to not consume more than 30% of our daily calories in fats. So if you break that down, what's a typical diet, or what should it be?
Actually, there's a little more flexibility, up to about 35% of calories from fat. But we want less than 1% from trans fats and less than 7% from saturated fat. And there's a more flexibility in terms of the poly and monounsaturated fats.
And just to add one more element, a lot of people still think that if they eat foods that are low in cholesterol, they're going to be all right. But cholesterol itself in the diet plays a very small role, right?
Yes, we actually are coming quite close to the goal for cholesterol intake. And we need to be worried about the foods that are used to manufacture cholesterol in our own bodies, basically the trans and saturated fats.
So that's what's happened. The trans fats and the saturated fats are bad because they tend to turn into cholesterol once they get into our bodies.
That's exactly right. Basically, they raise that bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol in our blood, and increase our risk of heart disease.
And as long as you've raised LDL, bad cholesterol, there's some new guidelines that are pretty stringent in terms of how low we ought to try to get those. Just say a brief word about those guidelines.
Yes, the guidelines are basically geared to reduce risk of heart disease, and so that for people in high-risk categories, we often want the LDL cholesterol even below 100, for example, people with diabetes.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the website. My understanding is it's www.heart.org. Is that the right title?
That is correct, but one needs the www to access it that way. One can also just type in American Heart and get the website as well.
And it's called Face the Fats. And what do you see when you get to that website?
It has a lot of information. It has commonly asked questions. It's Fats 101 as part of it. It includes, basically, it's designed based on what consumers have wanted to know, so that it has definitions of the different types of fat, so that probably just about anything anybody would want to know, and if there are things that people want to know that aren't there, they can post questions as well.
And it's currently up and operational, as I understand it.
Yes, if one goes there, it's one of the first things you see on the American Heart Association website.
Very, very good. Well, we thank you for taking the time to join us and tell us about this new source of information. I think it's going to be very helpful to people because, like you, I still hear a lot of questions that indicate people are confused. So it's been very gracious of you to come in this morning, and we thank you.
We thank you for letting us spread the word.
And we thank all of you for joining us for this edition of Healthy Life. We urge you to go to our website, the health page at abcnews.com, and to go to Be Seen and Be Heard to ask your questions. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Again, thanks for joining us for this edition. I'm Dr. Timothy Johnson.